Goldman Sachs is trying to digitally detox themselves of Apple.
I think it's about, if you have money and you want to spend it on something, spend it immediately, because before you know it, the kids will take the money.
I've been following this because I happen to be working on a story on this bit.
Just basically get off, the apps and the socials and the digital banking, and just go back to playing Snake on your Nokia.
No, not faster. I'm having sangria here.
So for me, I think Apple's strategy is just too spot on.
Cheers.
Welcome to Fintech Uncut, the quiz show with candid commentary on the biggest fintech and financial services news of the week that was. Disclaimer: this show is created purely for entertainment purposes and contains segments of sarcasm, satire, parody, and humor. Even if you don't think any of it is funny, the creators do not accept any responsibility or liability for the accuracy of any content shared, and reminded you to always fact-check everything yourself. And now, it's over to your quiz master.
Welcome everyone at Fintech Uncut, the quiz show with candid commentary on the week's biggest fintech and financial service stories with the wise guy, the other guy, and Judge Mary. This is a pretty exclusive summer edition. And for a change, our wise guy became another guy, meaning that we have the other guy and another guy, or shall we just call him Wasim. My name is Rick Roelbergs, the host of the day. This is the 30th try that the wise guy, this time another guy, and the other guy are competing to be best in class in this fintech comedy quiz show. Curious who will win this time? Let's go. Let's start with the very first question. And a sip on my sangria made by my father-in-law. Spiked with a bit more wine than usual. But question 1. It is time for a summer break for many, but a few weeks off seems not enough. Who is looking for a much longer digital detox this week?
Yeah, you got to be quicker than that, Wasim. You see, otherwise you'll learn. I don't know about a digital detox, but Ant Group has been having a regulatory detox for the last for quite a while now. People's Bank of China has been pushing a regulatory revamp. And according to news this week, they're about to be slapped with a $1.1 billion fine. Bizarrely, Alibaba Group's shares jumped up as a result of that announcement, because lots of people think that this is now going to pave the way for the next lot of innovation to come out of Ant Group. So they almost finished their regulatory detox.
Wow, I almost thought you had a head start there, as you trained for 29 times already. But we're talking about the digital detox here. So what's in?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few phones, and I'm going to probably for the next summer is it a news article that people want to go back to brick phones, and just basically get off, the apps and the socials and the digital banking, and just go back to playing Snake on your Nokia
3210.
Yeah,
actually, interestingly, now that you brought up phones, because this week Orange Telecom in France has announced that they are in talks with BNP Paribas for them to be able to take over their online retail banking offering. They had bought a majority stake in Groupama Bancaire. Rick, you'll probably correct my pronunciation. That's it. But they've accumulated over €1 billion worth of losses since launch. So they're trying to detox themselves from their financial services. Is that getting closer, Rick?
Not really.
Oh,
well, let me continue the paper trail on this one. So we talked about phones a little bit, smartphones, digital. Is it potentially something linked to, well, not everyone's on a mobile phone. Not everyone has access to digital banking potentially. And as a result of it, you might not be able to do the things you want to do in this environment. Is that getting closer?
You are getting closer, yeah.
But perhaps it's got to do with a specific phone, or maybe a specific phone manufacturer.
What do you mean, Andrew? Or are you giving away the question? Not sure.
Well, I think it's got to do with the fact that Goldman Sachs is trying to digitally detox themselves of Apple. There's a big, and it's unconfirmed, and the press articles do go on to say it is not imminent or assured, but apparently Goldman Sachs are trying to get out of their deal with Apple, even though they've only just recently extended their agreement, their relationship until the end of the decade. But they are apparently in talks with Amex to take over their card portfolio and consumer finance portfolio. Is that the kind of digital detox you were looking for, Rick?
Yes. And I mean, the fact that they want digital detox for me is less of a news than the fact that American Express will be taking it over.
Good news for me,
And
seeing
why
that
did-
I'm a long-time Amex user, but what does it mean to Goldman Sachs's consumer finance foray? Are they now going to get out of consumer altogether and go back to what they know that they're good at?
I think it's a strategy play. I think I think they got the fingers burnt a little bit in Marcus, and they're still feeling that and trying to recover from that. But I think the reality of this was that they should have been clear on the strategy on the partnership with Apple, who was doing what and what guys. Since then Apple's done buy now, pay later, and then they've got this other offerings coming on. I've heard of insurance and things of that nature, and maybe they're just not comfortable with the entire piece. And you're hearing about in the US pays this new payment rail that they're trying to get to compete with Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal. And I guess they maybe want to get some of this revenue back. And maybe that's another way to do it. I'm thinking it's interesting though, for sure. And even the American Express one, that's even more interesting as well. What's the strategy behind that? I'm not sure at this stage, but it's quite interesting to me that banks have failed there, and they've just slept on it, and now, and so much so, and every bank says they're a technology firm that provides financial services. So for me, I think Apple's strategy is just too spot on.
I mean, Goldman
banks failed, or they simply underestimate the fact that they have to give up ownership of the customer. I mean, they have to give up the direct contact with the customer while keeping the customer.
Well, it's kind of like
that may be a bit too much of a stretch, and perhaps also a lesson for any other BaaS provider in the world today. Mary.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's really curious. I've been following this because I happen to be working on a story on this, but outside of whether Goldman drops this or not, Apple savings in the States got into issues because people couldn't withdraw their savings as soon as they wished. So clearly they're new accounts, so they were probably just up against fraud controls. But I noticed in one of the more recent updates, now Apple's making it clear that money movement can take up to 5 days instead of 2 to 3, which I think was in the original language. So it's just, there's little things popping up here. But one little aside, I stupidly entered my wrong routing number when I was signing up for an account, and so I had to call Goldman Sachs. And then they were playing the music, I Like Me Better, and patched in my other bank, Chase, to ID me. And I was like, this is all very awkward. And Chase was like, what are you doing? But I passed. So
would that be perhaps a countermeasure against the realization that suddenly cash withdrawals can go very, very fast in case trust is gone in the banking industry after the fall of Silicon Valley Bank, maybe?
Well, they should know that, but maybe, I don't know, a lot of people should know lots of things and it doesn't happen, so perhaps. Okay, points. Andrew leads this round since he went quicker on the answer. So Andrew, 8. John, I liked your context, so 6.
Nice.
Next question. During summer, many people from Northern and Central Europe visit Spain for holidays, like Andrew today. This year, they're joined by a surprising guest from the South as well. I'm going to give you a tip. I'm not talking about a person here.
Seeing that we're slow off the mark there again.
I was thinking, no, I just don't want to talk for the sake of it, like you.
No, but you've got to get in there with the answers.
Um,
I mean, it's blazingly hot here in Spain at the moment, and I think that the unexpected visitor, is the El Nino weather pattern that's driving some of the hottest days on record. Brutal heat wave is how the press are describing it. Your link that you'll want to financial services is this will drive record ice cream sales. I used to work at Nestle's, and that is a fact.
it's definitely seasonal, that's for sure. Okay, let me kind of maybe think about this one. So summer people, Northern Central Europe. I mean, a lot of people like to maybe they're going to go to the South Pole. That'll be cold enough, I'm sure, and more exotic in some ways. Some spotting of some lovely animals. Maybe do a nice trip. Is that something potentially?
So far off.
Way far off. Like how far off? Like north, southwest? Like
This far.
Well, seeing that you said a visitor from the south, has this got something to do with Visa's acquisition of the Brazilian fintech firm Pismo? And maybe they're going to help Pismo expand out of Brazil to Spain because they've just spent $1 billion on the acquisition of Pismo. Rick's put on his dark glasses. That means he doesn't like my answer.
Well, I'm thinking of Northern and Central Europe and now for Spain, and now I'm just kind of going south and maybe a little bit east. Is it something more toward like the outskirts of Europe potentially kind of maybe coming in? Maybe some country like Turkey? Is that close?
Yeah,
Because
someone
not
of Turkey visiting the south of, yeah.
right. Well, I think I know what it might be then. The
Share
Turkish
it.
share. Okay, so I think Turkish neobank Papara has acquired or is in the process of acquiring Spanish counterpart of Rebellion, and as a result, is kind of technically like a fintech unicorn. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Cool, right? So from my understanding here, Papara, and I didn't know, and I have been following them for a while, but not too much in detail. But I was aware of this acquisition piece. I think they've been looking for a company to acquire, a fintech company somewhere in Europe to do their natural expansion. I think they were going through their due diligence approach, and I think they've managed to find a company that aligns to what they're trying to do and has the technology and the compliance and the customer base. And I think it's a good move actually. Like their company, like Financial Freedom for All, in terms of their motto, it seems to be using also like open banking and hopefully open finance. I know that's a big wave in Turkey at the moment as well. And I think it's a smart play. What I don't know actually is that with the advent of PSD3 and what's going to happen now, how is that all going to intertwine?
Well, it's likely simply going to be improving the service. Well, my biggest surprise is I never heard of it. And for me, that shows that perhaps the international fintech news is way too Anglo-Saxon, focusing on the news that gets in English, but other exciting news is not being translated. As a result, we sometimes miss on very interesting fintech stories. Like,
well, I've definitely been following the open finance kind of tables and ranking tables, and it's not just about Europe and the UK and the US.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
No, but I mean, Papara, 16 million users. That's like close to 50% more than the amount of people in Belgium. It's huge.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yes, so very interesting to see. But it always gets complicated, when you venture to another jurisdiction, different rules, different laws, different standards.
Yep.
And that kind of make and break a company as well. So I'd be very keen to see how they are in 3 months' time and so
That probably explains why they're doing acquisition and not growing organically in Europe.
Yeah, I was going to say the advantage is that they're actually keeping Rebellion. They're just going to be rebranding it to be Papara Spain. So they've got the local knowledge through the acquisition as opposed to trying to do breaking open a new market. No, like you, Rick, I'd never ever heard of Papara before. So I'm glad that Fintech Uncut was able to bring the story there. Well done there, Wasim.
Thank you.
Mary, what does it mean in terms of scoring?
Okay, I'll tell you what it means in terms of
He's a
score.
very good wise guy, isn't he?
Yeah, I would say so. Well, and he won this round. 8 points for you, 4 points for Andrew. So, Andrew, you're no longer in the lead.
Maybe next question. It's a holiday question, and you have holiday shirt. So, Andrew, I think you have a bigger chance of winning. Everyone deserves a holiday. But why is the Chancellor of the UK Treasury afraid this is not the case today? It's a tough one, huh?
Right, I've done it. I was thinking of what I was going to say, the buzzer. Well, could it be something to do with delays in passports, or the airlines, trains, things of that nature? Is it anything to do with that?
It could, except that it isn't.
It could be.
Oh,
You don't know until you're in there and then you're stuck in the queue.
Oh, I made a quiz.
That's true.
I was going to say, he's quite a brutal quiz master there. Is it something to do with the cost of living increases, seeing that he's the Chancellor? Bank of England keeps on pushing up the interest rates, and there was an article this week from economists warning that the interest rate must not be pushed past 7%, and even past 6% actually, because by 7% it will have a significant impact on the UK economy at least. What's the interest rate there in Belgium at the moment, Rick?
From banks?
Yeah, the base rate interest.
I don't know. Let me Google that.
Would it be 6%
I feel that
then?
question too.
I mean, I know I'm not getting enough, so I'm not following up very closely.
No, it's not on the savings. It's more on the base rate lending, which is affecting mortgages, which is affecting the housing market. And in the UK, the housing market is
3.5% according to Google.
Wow. Okay. So yours is still low. Ours hit 5% already, and it's just been going up 0.5% a month.
Hey, you want to get out of Europe?
Well, no, not me.
And what I hear is that a lot of individuals who are on like 2, 3, or 5 year fixed rates at 2.5 or 2 point whatever, they're going to have double their mortgage repayments coming, and so that's going to become an issue. Yeah, for me as well.
Mine has tripled. Mine has tripled since I came off my rate that I had. It's crazy.
I hope you're going to be able to triple your score in this quiz as well.
Well, maybe the Chancellor has read the latest report from the Payments Association under their Project Inclusion banner. It's called Navigating the Rising Cost of Living Payments Innovation as a Game Changer. And Project Inclusion is all about reducing financial exclusion. So maybe the Chancellor has read that and he's scratching his head a little bit about the amount of financial exclusion in the UK at the moment. And that's why, people are financially excluded. They can't go on holiday.
You are thinking in the right direction, but I need to have it a bit more specific.
I think I know this one. So there's been a bit,
as well.
I think there's been some stuff in the news recently about bank accounts potentially being frozen or potentially being closed for individuals that may have alternate views or potential political views. Is that kind of closer to the mark on this one?
I think so. Yeah.
It's interesting here, right? Because there is this thing about in media about being kind of blacklisted, or being frozen out, and that's more media in Hollywood and things of that nature, depending on what views you have. I think there's always been enhanced due diligence for PEPs, so politically exposed persons, and that's AML and KYC, just in case you can be bribed or there's fraud or anything like that going on. But I think recently accounts have been, I'm not going to name names or banks or individuals, but accounts are being closed or not being opened because people have alternate views. And I think that sets a dangerous precedence. There's conversation about free speech. There's conversations about people should be allowed to have, say what they feel and they mean, but also like excluding them financially is not the right approach, because people need access to bank accounts to live and to be in a society. So I think the Chancellor kind of deeply concerned on this. I think he's asked the FCA to have a look at it, do a report, and they're probably going to come back to him shortly. And I think that's it, right?
Yeah. And then to add to that, what I thought when reading that is that it's a very good exercise of how far you want to stretch in being as good as possible on the ESG principles. Like the S is all about inclusion and we need to have everyone involved, etc. But how do you cope with those people that claim that we should not have everyone involved, for one? And on the other hand, if you then look at the E, where banks are already taking very explicit positions in, for example, against nuclear energy, where some people say it is green, others say it's not green, etc. But how far are you going to stretch those things, and how, as a financial institution, do you make sure that you don't get negative press by including everyone's opinion, for example? I think it's a very good philosophical debate.
It's
Another
very controversial. Yeah, very controversial. As my understanding, Rick, is that the UK is being encouraged to challenge what currently is EU law regarding blacklisting. So the UK was originally under EU law before Brexit, and it's the EU laws that currently still apply that allow banks to exclude people based on a whole range of things, one of which includes their political position. And there was a fairly prominent, very noisy UK politician that was named in one of the articles that I saw that said,
yeah, it starts with an N and ends with Igel.
That's that's the man. And he was saying that his bank account had been closed completely because of his political views. Now, as much as I very much
like his borders,
yeah, I do not agree with his political views at all, but I don't agree with the approach of excluding him from financial services. I think that is a step too far. But as you say, it's a very, very fine line, and it's a spectrum. Where do you draw the line on that spectrum?
But I would say it's a slippery slope as well, and it's a game you can't win, because it's going on the lines of popular opinion, and popular opinion can change. And then then are you supposed to backtrack, or are you supposed to then stick with that approach? So yeah, it's a place you don't want to be, I think, ideally, because I support a company now, and we're doing like marketing and comms and PR and press relations and the digital media and so forth. Something can escalate very quickly, and the story can, and you may think you're doing the right thing, but then it could go against you as well. So yeah, I don't think it's a place people want to be in, for sure.
9 points for you, 7 points for Andrew, because he added some important elements there at the end. But yeah, what a dicey thing where a bank plays chief officer of who can bank with me. Yeah. All right. Next 3 rounds, quicker, faster.
Okay.
An opinion read. No, not faster. I'm having sangria here.
Leisurely for Rick.
An opinion piece this week shared the key reason not to wait to spend money on your dream travel. What am I talking about?
Oh, who was it? Me. I think I just tipped you, right?
Well, see, you just managed to get me there.
Thank you. I think it's about, if you have money and you want to spend it on something, spend it immediately, because before you know it, the kids will take the money, right? And then you can't do anything with it. So
that sounds smart.
Where's the fun part in these rounds?
That's it. As you can see, Wasim's got small kids, and so have you, Rick. You'll find out very soon that he speaks the truth.
Listen, if you don't use the money that you've got, it'll disappear on all sorts of stuff. And I think, summer, it's holiday time, holiday season, use it or lose it. I think that's what I've been advised as well. So is that it, perhaps?
You're getting very, very close there.
I think that that the main reason is that life expectancy has fallen by the biggest amount in a decade, according to a report from the FT. An FT article this week reported that up to £30 billion could be wiped off liabilities of pension schemes due to the life expectancy dropping by such a significant amount. It's dropped only by 6 months, which might not sound like a significant amount, but overall, the impact will be 30 billion, savings on behalf of the pension schemes.
I'm going to give you a tip, Andrew, as you're the oldest of the crew today. According to my parents-in-law, this is the remedy. The daily sangria.
Investing in it, you mean, right? Not drinking it. I think, is it something to link with like robo advice and investments, and perhaps returns not being as expected because of the markets and inflation? Is there anything like that, maybe?
The impression that you're afraid of sharing the answer, so you're trying to find out whether it's right or wrong. I'm not going to give you any hints. Or you give me the answer, or we switch to Andrew.
Oh, whoa.
Right, switch to Andrew then. Let's see. Andrew, I'll give you a chance.
Well, I think that you were on the right track there with all this talk about robo and all the rest. It's the world is becoming more and more reliant on AI. I mean, there's a report this week about even Hollywood's now concerned about AI taking their jobs. But in financial services, there was an opinion piece this week asking if AI could spark the next financial crisis. And the chair of the SEC certainly thinks so, that Gary Gensler is seriously thinking about the possible knock-on effects that the AI will have on the financial system. And he's talking about, financial stability in terms of can these platforms be relied on if we're using them for risk scoring, for algorithmic trading, for fraud detection and things like that. Is this just too newer technology, and the number of fintechs suddenly being spawned and services suddenly being offered that are based on one single foundation of open AI type of a thing? So he believes, the chair of the SEC believes, that there is a major potential systemic risk to financial services with AI.
Mary, is that the right answer?
I've got a view on this, though. I've got a view on this.
Yes, I want to hear it.
The view is that, AI is a technology and a capability, and we've known about it for ages, hence like robo advice and so forth. And now it's got to a state that it's actually kind of useful. But like any technology, you have to define the parameters and how you're going to use it. And, the financial industry is highly regulated. So like, this is going to come in. And there's going to be guidance on it, and I just feel like there's too much fear mongering on it. We should be figuring out how to use the technology to better the outcomes for the end consumer and the end SME, right? That should be the aim of this, not about, are they going to take our jobs? Are they going to take over the world? I get this point about if we're using one type of AI, then, and a lot of banks or institutions try to use that, let's say like credit affordability, and then that seems to be the modus operandum. And then there's bias built into that. Then, if something goes wrong, it all trickles down. But that's the case for any type of technology or anything in the that we use. So, I think more has to be done on it. And scaremongering like that, from someone very senior, that has, obviously they're going to get press. Maybe there's more of a political agenda there, I think.
All right, points. 6 for you, Azim. 8 for you, Andrew.
I have no idea where the points are going.
I think this is a close game.
Right.
I'm counting it in my head. I'm not counting as in cards, but I'm counting it in general in my head.
Your Excel sheets. I know how you do
well,
that.
I've got 3 screens here, right? But I did want to say one thing. And when Andrew invited me and you to about, did I feel nervous about being the wise guy's replacement? And there are some big shoes to fill, but from what I remember, I've got bigger hands and bigger feet than Chris, so it shouldn't really be a problem. But anyway, I wanted to just throw that in there.
Hey, we're at 27-29. Andrew, you're losing a little bit right now. Uh-oh.
All right, next question. I found 4 reasons why it's easier to get your identity stolen on holiday. And this is not a question, because I'm going to answer it myself. 1. Busy and distracted shoppers are targets for identity thieves. 2. Identities prey on online bargain seekers. 3, criminals can access information sent through public Wi-Fi. And 4, skimmers steal shoppers' data. Now the question, why should you even be more careful with this now than a few years ago?
Everyone fails.
5 points for Rick.
I can't answer that because you gave all the answers. I would say one thing on this when it comes to identity stolen, is like you have everything on your mobile phone now, right? And some of it have Face ID or fingerprint. There's ways to go over the fingerprint, for sellotape and all that kind of stuff. Maybe it's like you lose your mobile phone, then you lose everything because everything's on your mobile phone. Potentially. Is it linked to this?
It's too easy.
Too easy.
I think it's sort of linked to that because people share too much on social media, particularly like their holiday snaps on Instagram. And now, as of yesterday, last night when I went to bed, the new Instagram offering from Meta, Threads, has got over 55 million subscribers in like 48 hours. Are you on Threads, Mary?
I am. I've done nothing, but I'm
I have
Fintech Uncut on Threads, Mary.
Me too.
Oh, I will. Maybe.
You're gonna have to tell me what your handles are there because I don't see either of you on there. But so if people are going on holiday and they're sharing all their stuff on Threads, there is a big opportunity for scammers to start stealing so much data about them, all their identities.
Bigger than Twitter?
Well, Twitter
was there a few years ago.
Twitter is going to apparently going to be bringing out a lawsuit against Meta for straight up copying.
Yeah, and a cage fight.
But and a cage fight. But the reason why I say that it's you said why you should be more careful with this now than a few years ago. Is I think people have just got very lax. So now they're oversharing. They're just sharing blimming everything, every aspect of their lives. And that's a lot of data out there that people don't even realize can be used by scammers and others. So I think you're on the right track there, Wasim, but
Well, I would say funny story, but I would say funny story in Threads because I've never used Instagram in my life ever. My wife is on it. I am not, but because I wanted to get on Threads, I signed up to Instagram yesterday, so then I could get onto Threads, right? Which is really funny, and I bet you there's a lot of people who've never used Instagram and have just signed up just to get onto Threads.
Hey, you couldn't.
No, you could. You have to use Instagram.
Yeah, but also you have to live in the US, no?
No, it's available in the UK as well.
It's not available in Belgium.
No, it's Europe. It's not available yet because the data privacy laws are higher.
So maybe leaving you had a benefit there in terms of being able to get onto Threads. But anyway,
yeah, I'm not so sure that's a big enough one. So.
I know. I'm sure. I'm gonna do. Yeah. I think I know what the story is, Mary. And Rick. So I think it's linked to the AI theme again, and story. More like a thought piece, really, about creating. I would say kind of more opportunities for fraud, synthetic fraud specifically, creating up new people who don't exist, creating new IDs that don't necessarily exist, but getting into the system then to do some fraud on that impacts real businesses or individuals. And maybe the industry and the regulators, not regulators, but just the controls need to kind of focus on this more and build upon it in terms of deep fakes and things of that nature going on. Is that something close to?
Is it like stealing Andrew's picture on social media and then putting a holiday shirt on it and then pretending that he's effectively in the show?
Rick, you would get points for that comment. But instead, Wasim gets 9. Andrew, are you going to add on here? Are we going for like
add on?
I was actually going to be asking you a question, Mary, because apparently this is quite big. Synthetic identity fraud is quite big in the States because of social security numbers. Because nowhere, in UK and Europe, we don't the use of our identification, our national identification number, is not as big as in the States. Everything is tied to your social security number. And apparently, once you can get hold of somebody's social security number, so a child's social security number, child won't pick up for years that their social security number has been used inappropriately.
But that's the biggest thing. It's not about social security number as such, but with the number, you can't do anything. In Belgium, we have a card with a number attached, but you still need to prove. You need to remove the card.
And that's what I was going to say, is that starting with a social security number in the States, you can then build this whole synthetic identity on top, because it's built on top of the social security number. So now they can make deep fake videos of a person, the whole parcel thing, and the person doesn't exist. That synthetic identity becomes a real person to the banks and the financial institutions. And in this particular story, there was one group that had ripped off the Paycheck Protection Program to the tune of $20 to $25 million. And that was just one of the scammer groups and one thing. So, Mary, is this something quite big, synthetic identity theft and scamming in the States?
Oh my gosh, it's been so big. And it was really big when I first started reporting on this beat, and that was 2008. So like, it's just growing, getting worse. I mean, there's some solutions, but like, it's a challenge banks don't really know how to handle here often.
Are you real?
I often ask myself this. I'm glad we presented the question. I'm exploring the answer this summer and beyond.
Mary, do you think digital ID is a solution?
I don't know. I don't have a firm yes on that. Do you?
No, I don't have a firm yes, but I mean, it may answer some of the issues, but perhaps
I think it does.
It may complicate other things. But Belgium has digital ID, right?
Yeah, but I attended an identity conference once in Vegas, and what surprised me, I've shared it a couple of times, is that the whole discussion about identity gets pretty close to religion. It's all about how do you look at identity and how much are you willing to give away of your identity. And I can imagine, like in Belgium, where even my 2-year-old son has an identity card with a chip. That's something that's nearly impossible to sell to the American consumer, who's very much loyal to his freedom and doesn't want to share it that much. I mean, not every American, of course, but it is a different attitude towards identity sharing. And in Belgium, we don't mind having our identity on our phone. And the fact that you can authenticate, that you can sign, that you can do whatever with your phone, we have this trust in the system.
Yeah.
And that's not everywhere, which is a debate on, does the identity work, yes or no? It's probably a yes, but it comes with a lot of side conditions, because if population doesn't follow, you have a great solution, but no users.
So I think that's a debate that's going to continue for a while, but it's it's definitely a big enabler for other things, especially in finance, in terms of like how you consent your data, how you manage it, the sharing, the revoking. There needs to be some type of uniform ID to also like speed up AML, KYC onboarding, something. So something is going to happen here, but it's
again, these are different challenges, because our identity, the digital identity, has nothing to do with KYC. You can do the KYC with that identity, but it's not included in the app, so to say.
All right, I'm sticking with the 9 with Wazim, and Andrew, you're getting a 7, so you better like buckle up this last round.
And again, I think he has the odds with him, as it's a thing we've discussed a couple of times. So unless Wazim has listened or watched all our shows
and memorized
this question is not playing in his favor. If you're planning to spend your whole day in Australia, make sure you don't forget to book one thing.
Insect repellent. And bring a lot of it, and garlic, as in eat it so your blood is not sweet. The old wives' tale might be true. My mum always said, don't eat so much sweet, because then the insects can smell it on you and they come to get you. So eat garlic and, you know, pickles and all that kind of stuff, and then they'll.
But why do you need a booking for that?
Huh?
I
No,
was speaking about don't forget to book one thing.
well, maybe. Book. All right. I thought it was like more ticket.
Are you
I've
gonna
I've read the
schedule a
question
booking
wrong.
to get garlic? Massive amounts of garlic.
Right, Rick, you don't know him enough to know whether he would book that.
I know,
Look, if
that's why I asked.
what you've got to book at the moment is, if you're a footy fan, you've got to book tickets to the 2023 Women's World Cup, which is about to take place over there. The Lionesses arrived there yesterday, and their first match, I think, is in 2 weeks' time. So, you know, the British, the men's team couldn't bring home the trophy. I'm saying home. They couldn't take it home to the UK, but maybe the ladies' team is going to show them how it's done. So book your footy ticket.
Yeah, the reigning world champions, me being Scottish, obviously, and my wife being English, kids being, I don't know, mixture. I wish them well.
Well put.
Rick's unimpressed there.
I'm waiting for financial services answers.
Travel insurance. You'll have to, that's financial services.
Yeah.
You should book your travel insurance, because pretty much everything in Australia is going to be able to kill you.
Unless you have a Revolut metal card and then you have your travel insurance covered by Belgian InsurTech cover.
Throwback. I think this drink is suiting you, Rick.
Yeah,
Well,
For every week.
I feel
Cover is
bad
doing
here.
really well. Cover is doing fantastically. I know that we had tipped them last week, but they had tipped 2 weeks in a row with their latest product launch here, yeah?
Yeah, and a capital increase of 30 million this week.
So I feel bad here because I actually know the answer, but I was trying to give Andrew some time to see if he can get it out. But, you know, if you're not going it, then I'm going to go straight into it. Andrew, last chance.
You go for it, Wasim.
Right. It's about booking the ability to get some cash out. Right. We talk a lot about digital money and mobile wallets and cashless society and all that kind of good stuff, which is fine. And I've experienced that here myself in London, or my local high street. It was my bank, and they were, you know, I used to go in and use it as required, and then they scaled that branch down into what they called an ATM branch, which was, it was ATMs and 2 people behind supporting. But I went into, I need to get £1,000 out, and they were like, oh, well, the ATM only has up to £500. I said, well, I've only got the one account. So I said, right, here's £500. So now what do I do? He said, oh, you'll have to go to another branch and take it from there. I was like, what, really? But it's like, so it became a headache. And, you know, funny story, when I had to get a lot of cash out in Canary Wharf to pay builders, that's a separate story, I won't go into it. But in terms of this one, if you're, and usually in the UK, like, if you need to get more than like £10,000 out cash or 5,000, it becomes an issue. But I read a story where it was like it was a lady trying to get money out. I don't know the bank, it could be ANZ or NAB, I can't remember now. But it was about, I think she wanted to get like $2,500 out. And she went and then she said, oh, you can't have that. You'll have to make an appointment and come 2-3 days after. And it's not a big amount of money. I mean, it is in terms of, in general, individuals, but in banking terms, it's not. And I was, you know, and it was mad. And like, I think she made a complaint, she quit. And then this story started to socialize in the media, and there was, had a bit of press coverage on it. So is that the answer? I think it is, right? But I just want to double check. Is that the answer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Really?
these people cannot wait to have a CBDC available.
That's another whole episode by itself, Rick.
But it's
All
really
right, Mary, I think we know who the winner
We know
is.
the winner. I was going to see if Andrew was going to throw some words down, but we know the winner.
The other guy. No, the wise guy.
The other
otherwise
one,
guy. The otherwise.
The otherwise guy. Da-da-da-da.
But I just wanted to say in this point, though, it's really interesting because like banks managing their cash liquidity, you know, and trying to, because if you work in a branch and you're that region, you're supposed to forecast how much you think cash you need in the branch for like this week, like 2-3 months in advance. Then you manage that with your treasurer, right? So what's obviously happened, there's been some poor planning, but for the fact that you can't manage an extra 2.5K is mad. I mean, I've never heard of this.
Easily if you have high volumes, like high volumes of relatively similar amounts of money gets withdrawn. But if at a certain moment you have like every once in a month, one person withdrawing 2,000, how are we going to manage that?
Well,
Mad.
more on that story there. ANZ and NAB apparently no longer permit over-the-counter withdrawals. That's it. It's a blanket thing. If you need to get money, you have to go to the ATM. That's yeah. We have spoken about this quite a few times in the past, Wasim, where there was a story about a person having to travel 1,000 kilometers to get to their closest point where they could access cash. And that's, yeah, that is something to think about in the day of everything going digital. But I think that's enough for a pre-summer holiday show to be able to bring it to a close.
I just want to say one thing. If banks like that, they need to be utilizing the post offices. There's a big thing happening in the UK.
In Belgium too.
Yeah, in Belgium. Yeah, I think I heard of that, where you cash over the counter, depositing and taking out. A lot of neobanks, Starling, Tide, and a few others that don't have branch services utilize the post office. Yes, for a nominal charge. And also post offices are trying to figure out what is their business model. But yeah, I'll finish there. But it's an interesting play. Just go to the post office website in the UK and you'll see a bunch of stuff that they offer is like, are they becoming a bank in disguise? Really interesting. So banks should not sleep on post offices either.
Mary, can you please stop this post, ambassador?
I mean, I think you got to drop a song in, Rick. Elvis. Some Aloha. We're at the beach. Well, two of us are. Andrew and I are.
Like Don't Stop Me Now of Queen. Anyway, thank you all for listening or watching our show. I cannot wait for more international fintech news coming soon, but not so soon because it's summer. If you like our show, make sure to register on our website for the newsletter to be the first to know about new episodes. And if you're looking for the best possible shirt for your holidays, have a look at our merchandise. This was the 30th episode of Fintech Uncut, and we hope to entertain you, your colleagues, your friends, connections, and followers, perhaps a shark you meet somewhere, I don't know, very soon again. Bye-bye.